Welcome to Speak the Truth. My name is Gary Johnson. I'm the founder and publisher of BlackMenInAmerica.com. And I want to introduce our host. He's a walking legend, 24/7, 365. He's the National Association of Black Journalists 2020 Pioneer Award winner. And he is a sports radio talk show host icon, the one and only Mr. Harold Bell. Over to you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Gary. Let me introduce my team. A few good men are here today. Gary Johnson, of course, wears many hats. He is the founder and CEO of BlackMenInAmerica.com. Out of 500 Black websites on the internet, BlackMenInAmerica.com can be found in the top 10. He has a law enforcement background. His new hat, Master Chef, Gary Organic Seasoning. How about that? And our next guest is Chris Johnson.
Oh, I got it blocked. You can look at it.
All right, we got.
Please mute yourself. If you're talking, please mute yourself. Our next guest is Chris Johnson, aka CJ. He is our in-house youth voice. He is all things politics and all things sports. He also is a talented musician and the leader of his own band, the Cortland Experience, and a contributor to BlackMenInAmerica.com. And let's start with this show today. Gary, will you hit that first video?
Yes, sir. Let's go with the video here. So let's go here. And let's do it. It's a little slow, but it's getting there. It's trying to, there we go. It's trying to run. Man, this video's dragging.
It's all right. That's okay. I can explain it once it drags out. Okay, let it go there, Gary.
All right.
That was a video, a picture.
I'll get it.
With the San Diego Padres. He pitched his first no-hitter. This is the first no-hitter in the history of the San Diego Padres franchise. This guy grew up right there in San Diego. He was a big fan and followed the San Diego Padres. And there he is on the mound for the first no-hitter in the franchise history. What kind of history is that, man? That is fantastic. And the people just went wild, and I guess all the players did too. But the reason I wanted to start with that is because there was a big story that came out of Atlanta last month, and that was that the baseball commissioner had canceled the All-Star game to be played in Atlanta, Georgia. And I knew right away that my buddy, my friend, he was really upset. And this was a press release that I received from John. It said, excuse me, as president of the Atlanta Metro RBI team in Atlanta, Georgia, it read, I am truly disappointed that the Major League Baseball All-Star game will not be played in Georgia. Our organization is directly impacted by this decision. Major League Baseball and the Atlanta Braves have had a positive impact on the kids that we serve, some of which are currently playing now in the league, like Michael Harris of the Braves, Curtis Turner of the Rangers, and 2020 American League Rookie of the Year, Kyle Lewis of the Mariners, to name a few. The All-Star Weekend would have given some of our exceptional student athletes a chance to shine on a very large stage. by displaying their academic excellence with a 3.740 grade point averages. Although we are disappointed, we support the decision. Atlanta Metro RBI kids are no strangers to sacrifice for a greater cause other than baseball when serving the community. Last year during the pandemic, several players and parents, in partnership with the 100 men of DeKalb and DeKalb County Commissioner Larry Johnson, helped feed over 1,000 families during the week before Thanksgiving with a turkey and the full fixings. We understand that Major League Baseball has to make a stand for social justice and fair voting rights for all citizens with their platform to invoke positive change across our great nation. I just hope these young men realize that they can make a positive difference on and off the field as they mature and grow into this game as young men. You know, for people, by the people. I'd like to introduce my friend, a guy that I met here in Washington, D.C. at Ben's Chili Bowl years ago when he brought hundreds of young men into town to take a tour of Washington, D.C. He's been named a hero in the community by CBS television. His record, man, is legendary. He's in Arizona right now. Well, he's on the way back from Arizona because he went there to see his son play in an NIA playoff championship that was hopefully take him to the World Series. And I'm talking about his youngest son, Jordan. I would like to welcome my man, John Hollins. I know he and his wife are taking that plane back from Arizona today. How you doing, John?
Mr. Bell, you got to get closer to the mic. You got to move over to the.
I'm sorry. Okay, am I okay now?
That's better.
Hey, Gary, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yeah,
yes,
sir.
Hear you.
Okay, I was going in and out with Harold. Hey, Harold, thank you so much. Guys, I'm sorry that I'm traveling, so if my communication gets a little blurry, it's because I'm traveling. But when the great Harold Bell calls you, it tells you he needs you to do something, then you do what you have to do to make that happen. And it's been an honor to be on Gary's show and Harold's show. So, you know, I'm just proud to be a part of it. My wife and I just got back we headed back from Arizona to see our son play baseball out here. Had a great weekend. You know, went 2 for 6 with 6 walks, and they won 2 games. So I wanted to join Harold to talk about the move of the All-Star game, and in the process introduce 2 people who will be on the show, twins. The Strain twins are no stranger to baseball and controversy. They broke the barrier in Alaska when they were young, and they're continuing to make differences in the community with the game, especially Bert being a big contributor to the ATL Metro RBI program and helping quite a few kids. Even one of his kids, when he was out in Oakland, pitched the other day, Joey Ross. So he's impacted a lot of kids. And so the Bert and Albert twins, Strain twins, we're glad to have you. And Harold, you can speak more of. I'm gonna have to mute because guys, I'm gonna have to jump on the shuttle in a minute, but I'll be here and I'll click on and off, Harold, when you need me.
Okay. I like for Albert and I like Bert and Al to come in to talk about, you know, the counseling of the Major League All-Star game in Atlanta, and what does that really mean to the Black community? How about Bert, you lead off with that, Bert. Take yourself off mute. Okay, Bert, take yourself off mute.
You can hear me there now.
There you go. Yeah, there you are. Tell us what it means. Tell us what it means by the game being counseled, and what does that really mean to the Black community?
Well, as John put it, we're all disappointed. But see, the ultimate goal was we got people's attention. Unfortunately, it didn't have to get to this because all those major corporations, whether it be Delta, Home Depot, all these major corporations, all they had to do was make one phone call to the governor and say, well, you're going in the wrong direction on this. It's going to have a very heavy impact on what you're doing. And all I have to do is look at a little history. The Super Bowl was moved from Arizona to Pasadena. The NBA basketball event was moved out of Charlotte. I mean, these are things that the community of sports are now politics because people pay money to go to these games. The unfortunate part about it is that the small business person, the minority vendors, they're the ones that got hurt. But on the baseball side, our youth, as reference to the RBI program, where John, he's my commissioner, he is. Every year, RBI would have an event for the youth to play a quote unquote non-competitive tournament and be showcased on the field at the All-Star game, where our kids won't get a chance to experience that. And see, those All-Star games, you got 30 teams. So each 30 team puts their bid in and they rotate. So when is the next time they'll come to Atlanta? I mean, I'm just hoping like the state of Arizona got the Super Bowl back the following year because finally they came to their senses. You can't do what they were trying to do. Jim Crow with a suit and tie doesn't work. Our young people are too intelligent. They know that. We had a workout today, just guys that wanted to have fun, come out to hit. We had 13 or 15 guys. These guys are Division I, collegiate guys, pro prospects. And all of them, we talked about the impact of what happened in Atlanta. It's unfortunate, but I think they really got the attention of the powers to be. But see, the corporate dollar runs this. And it's disappointing that they didn't make the call prior to. They knew they were going to be doing something like this in 43 states. So why? I mean, that's why I just can't get over the stupidity of that. But it was something that had to be done, but it didn't have to be done if the corporate people would have come to the table prior to. That's the key. That's what I got to say about that.
Okay, Al, how about Brother Al, picking it up from there? Al, see you with us now. We're talking about the impact of the All-Star game being canceled in Atlanta, Georgia, and really what does that mean for the Black community? Al, take it. Al, can you hear me? I see. Take yourself off mute.
You can see him.
I can see him.
Okay, good.
Well,
Okay,
hey,
Al.
it's good. Hey, it's good being with you today, and I think it's a valid concern. I'm not in Atlanta anymore. However, I know that when you can bring in an event like that, and the dollars that circulate in the community are so critical. What I sense is if MLB is committed to fund those interests where those funds are going to be missed, and that's going to be critical because they need those funds, okay? The number of people who are going to be employed, vendors, secondary people for that event, they were looking forward to that. They were planning for it. So it's really unfortunate. But you know something, this is a critical, pivotal point, in my opinion, relative to baseball. Who would have thought that baseball would have injected themselves into a situation like that? I never would have thought that. Maybe the NBA, but never MLB. Such a conservative operation. So, you know, I've got mixed emotions. I hate to see it left Atlanta. Matter of fact, I spent 6 years in Denver, so I know they're just ecstatic to have it come to Denver. But there are some political things relative to that it went there. But I've got mixed emotions on it. I think MLB has got to be held to account that those entities that were going to be funded are going to be missing those funds. The other thing is, and I don't know if a lot of us realize, the MLB as well as NFL, they're not into the charitable contributions like the PGA is, okay? PGA and the LPGA, when they go into a town, okay, for a tournament, it is the funding and the charities that benefit for that. And see, MLB and NFL, and I'm not quite sure if NBA is involved or not involved in that. So that might be a way that MLB can further extend themselves in those communities. So it's a long-winded answer to your
That's all
question,
right.
but I got to tell you, it struck me when they decided to step up. I was shocked. Okay.
John, before you get out of here, I know you're traveling back. I want you to come in and kind of elaborate on just what Bert and Al just said. As you head back home, John, and you're going back to those kids, how do you bring them all together, man, even with this big disappointment now? I know you got your young son in Arizona, and he's playing ball. He's playing for the playoffs and trying to get to the World Series in that particular conference. Tell us how you feel about that, John.
As far as the All-Star game, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
As far as the All-Star game and the kids in Atlanta, Bert was with them this morning, and believe it or not, the kids, I don't think the kids anticipate. I'm sorry, I don't think the kids anticipate anything from it anyway. To be honest with you, Bert and I, because we're familiar with MLB and been involved with it, we knew that there was some great opportunities were going to come about it because, it's a dog and pony show. Anybody who's been in entertainment, they understand how that works. There are some positives with that dog and pony show, but they want everything to look good, look great. So they throw money at it to make it better. It doesn't mean necessarily that the intentions are always there, but you know what? We can do a lot with that money. It can really help us. So, we take it and move forward. But then once the game got taken away, the emphasis is not there. Now, they vowed that all programs that were going to benefit from the program, from the All-Star game, will still benefit. And that remains to be seen. You know what I mean? It remains to be seen. But I hope that it will. I will continue to stay in contact with them. But as far as the boys, we're going to continue. If you knew the phone calls that Bert and I make, the late night calls to each other trying to help these kids get into college, our program, if I combine what Bert's done in Oakland, combined with what we've done here, we've probably seen over 150 kids going to college and probably 30 or 40 in the pros. And that doesn't happen by playing in tournaments. That doesn't happen by playing games. It happens by developing kids, the whole kid, academically and athletically, then picking up the phone and making a phone call. And you got a coach out there. Well, we have several coaches that we've placed kids, like here in Arizona. The closer for that program that shuts down the big games, he played for me. The number 5 hitter in their lineup, hitting 500 in the conference, my own son, he played for me. So when I tell this coach I got a player, he doesn't have to go through the hoops. He knows if I say he can play, he can play. If Bert calls somebody and say I got a player, they know he can play. So what this does is it allows us to place kids in places where they don't have the budgets to be able to recruit. And those things are going to continue to go on. Major League Baseball and the Braves have nothing to do with that. What we use that for is to be able to benefit putting them in games, and the more games they play, the more we can coach them, the more we can develop them, the better they get. At the end of the day, we don't promote professional baseball. We promote getting an education, but we were kids once also. And I believe that a kid has a right to dream. And if he works hard, believe in his ability, trust in his ability, and trust in God, all things are possible. So we never want to limit a kid. I tell people, and I'll stop here, do not allow man's limited expectations to overshadow God's unlimited power. So don't be a naysayer. People are going to always put you down, say you can't do something. Those are the kind of people that couldn't do it themselves. I believe in encouraging the kids to be great, but I also make sure they have a foundation. Academics is first and foremost, and Bert backs me up on that, and we have some outstanding academic kids that are getting recruited by Georgetown. Top schools now, because they have the academics, the AP classes, and everything necessary to go ahead and go there, regardless of whether they play ball or not. So I'm about to roll into this shuttle. I'm not going to hang up, but I'm going to put myself on mute so you guys don't hear all the noise. But so good to hear you. I want to say one thing. I snuck on the phone a little earlier. Gary, I wasn't eavesdropping, but I had a great chance to hear you and Mr. Savoy talk, and my wife and I riding, and you know, y'all had us cracking up, man. I'm going to tell you now. But go ahead, back to the story.
All right. Thank you, John. What we're going to do, I want everybody to hold right there. I want Bert and Al to stay with me. I see that. So glad Michael Jackson has joined us from Selma, Alabama, because I want to talk about, of course, some things that are going on in police reform. I got Charles there, I got Sydney, and I got Jacques, and I got, of course, Gary, and of course, CJ. What I want to do is introduce the second part of the show. And then what we'll do, we'll come back with all you guys, and you can pick up on baseball, or you can pick up on COVID-19. But I want to introduce this special guest, a special friend of mine. He was born and raised in the city of Alexandria, Virginia. He has been an outreach specialist, safe place coordinator for kids in crisis for the Alexandria Recreation Department for the past 25 years. Before that, he was one of 3 founders and leader of a group of young men called the Untouchables for 10 years. Without a doubt, he is a legend on the playgrounds and in the streets of Alexandria, Virginia. He has been one of my go-to guys whenever I want to do anything in Alexandria, Virginia with young men and women. I would like to welcome to Speak the Truth, the one and only Michael Johnson, AKA Michael J. How you doing, Michael J?
Good. How y'all doing? Glad to see
Okay,
everybody.
before you say anything, Mike, I want Gary to hit the video. Gary, hit that video for Alexandria, Virginia. Then we'll come back with Michael. We have no audio.
No audio.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. That's all right. It's a short one. That's all right. We'll get back. People can see what you guys are doing.
Why?
Wow, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, you can cut it. But a few seconds left anyway, you can't hear. But anyway, that was Michael J. and his partner, Benny Evans. They went out with a group of people in Alexandria, Virginia that were underserved, weren't getting the COVID-19, or they didn't want to get it, knocking on door to door, which was fantastic. Right now, you heard me introduce Michael. Michael, introduce your partner, of course, your partner in the streets, and the partner in policing. Tell us about it.
That's Officer Benny Evans. And Officer Benny Evans and myself, we've traveled all over the place now, last 10 or 12 years, becoming friends. And he know that I used to always tell him when I first met him how I used to cuss the police out. Matter of fact, when I first met him, he had on some jeans, flip-flops, and tattoos all over his body. And my sister said, "This Officer Benny Evans, he's a cop." And I looked and said, "That MF ain't no cop," right? And walked away from him. And he said, "Hey, man, you gonna do that right in front of my face?" Say hell yeah until you prove me wrong, right? But no, Benny is one of the top 12 cops in the country by then Attorney General Lynn. Me and Benny have done a lot of things together in the city. And I want y'all to remember about those numbers that y'all last seen on the screen. But first I want to say, Harold, thank you so much, man, because you go so far back when we were with Dr. George Loganell and you had your talk show. And George used to look at me, and I'm being from Virginia and George being from DC. I don't know if they know Sonny Loganell, but anyway, George would watch me for about 4 or 5 months. He would never, ever say anything but how you doing? Have a good day, right? Well, that brother George, I know you know, Harold, had served some time in the penitentiary, came out and got a PhD, wrote a book called Get Away Clean. He was a master trainer. He trained me off that book. And Harold, you was there along that whole walk because we used to come on your talk show and everybody was asking George, why are you taking him? George said, because he said that he didn't ask me not one question, and he listened. He said, that's what I need to go in these rooms. But he introduced me to you. And like I said, you've been doing a lot of things over in Alexandria. I have Bert Sugar over there, doing the Black History program over there with Mr. Henson, working with the former vice mayor over there, Bill Cleveland. You've done a lot, even with toys, kids at Christmas time. So I want to thank you in front of everybody because you've always had your hands on Alexandria. And matter of fact, the first Earl Lloyd ceremony that took place, you set that up over at Bowling Air Force Base. And I got the chance to come over there. And then you did another one over in Earl's hometown, Charles Houston, where the school used to sit. And that's when Earl, and this is the funny thing about Earl, a lot of people don't know this, but you do, Earl. Earl Lloyd, oldest brother, and my father was best of friends. They thought they were brothers. A lot of people did. Earl Lloyd used to come to my house Thanksgiving and sit down and eat and drink with my father and them, but he never talked about his accolades. You know what I mean? And then when you had that second ceremony at Charles Houston, Harold, he kept looking at me and this old guy named Dawkins, old folks Dawkins. He kept asking, who is that boy? He said, I know him from somewhere. He said, oh, that's Shaggy Boy's son, because that's what they knew my dad as, right? But let me make a long story short, you brought a lot over to Alexandria. I just want to thank you publicly for that. Benny Evans, back to him. Again, we served together in the city of Alexandria, and those numbers y'all saw at the end were what drove me to sit down with the head of the health department and neighborhood health care. And I told them I need the code in order so I can register people on the spot to get their vaccination. Because if you saw it, it was 71% was white that was getting it over in Alexandria, 13% black. Benny Evans, myself, some more law enforcement officers, people from the sheriff department, we got together. We have a group we started called the SRG. That's a social responsibility group. It is made up of some city workers, some pastors, some business people, and just some ordinary people, And since me and Benny been working together the last, I don't know, like we stuck to the hip, 10, 12 years, Benny and I have done a lot together, and we saw that and we said, we're going out and we're going to go out to the neighborhood and we're going to knock on the doors because what the people told us was this. They were scared to go into the neighborhoods to get our people registered. And we said, hey, if that's the ultimate sacrifice we got to pay, and this may sound a little cliche, but that's what we said. And I said, I hope there are no pastors on here, but I said, fuck it, let's go. And that's how we got on. And to this day, and I tell Benny this every day, don't worry about them giving you the accolades, just get the job done. Because that's the main thing, getting the job done. But with that, I like to, let Benny share his story. He's from Louisiana, y'all. He can cook too.
He can cook.
Yeah.
All right, Benny, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Y'all can tell Mike's kind of modest, right? First and foremost, I want to tell you guys, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. And I hope I can contribute in every way that I've been kind of presented as. Like I said, Mike's kind of modest about what he does, but I'm still learning this curve, and I'm learning it from the perspective of a cop. And that even makes it even more difficult. One of the things that me and Mike kind of met on, and the story is just like he said it. it literally was him saying, "This guy ain't no cop." And one of the things I like to, I'm proudly to tell people is, I wasn't born a cop. I was born a human, and I'm gonna treat everybody like that until I have to treat them differently. So I'm still learning this thing from Michael Johnson and gentlemen like yourself. Like Mike said, it's a different way of policing. One of the things that we're looking at right now is, how do we change the face of policing? How do we change the culture? And something that I tell my chief constantly is, I said, one thing is, we gotta accept where the foundation of law enforcement came from. Foundation of law enforcement came from slave catchers. And until we accept that and understand that the foundation is broken, we got to realize that we're not going to be able to build on a bad foundation. So maybe we need to look at an alternative to what we're doing. So one of the alternative things I started looking at was being a part of the community that I live in and I serve in. And I just happened to run into Michael Johnson and find out we were doing the same work, just on different forefronts. Now that I'm joined, like you said, I'm probably not joined at the hips. I'm probably the guy in the backpack, and he just kind of carries me around, because all the accolades that I can say that I've received, it's only because of the respect that I have for Michael and the hard work that we both put in. I always say I'm just the face of the award. I have a large team of people supporting me and pushing me through. I'm just one that picks it up. In the city of Alexandria, we've been working together. I can't even count how many years now. But when this pandemic hit, some of the things that me and Michael was looking at was, how do we make sure our people aren't overlooked in this pandemic? One of the things was the vaccinations. Early on in our travels, we realized that a lot of our folks weren't getting vaccinated, and we didn't know if it was from what it was from. But because of those hardline conversations that we had between me and Mike, one of the things he brought up is, he's like, you got to realize our people have an issue with the government giving us anything, and it goes all the way back to the 60s when they gave us syphilis to do a test on us. So how do you think our people are going to actually respond to a vaccination they know nothing about? So my learning curve with this thing was, okay, yeah, I wasn't born in the 60s, but I was in the 70s, and I'm going to follow this guy because he ain't never led me wrong. And when we discussed it, it was, we need to put boots on the ground, because I think the world has gotten so far away from boots on the ground. That guy doesn't exist much in the police department. It's all about data. So one of the things that Mike pushed us to is, get out of the car, go and talk to your community, find out what's in your community. If you're scared of your community is never going to respect you. So going around doing this vaccination registration, I started to realize that a lot of the community knew myself and Michael Johnson is because we've been in the community, but they didn't really know a lot about our law enforcement and what goes on in law enforcement. So to break that barrier down, it's not about the community, it's about getting the cops out. Get the cops out and let them know, hey, these are the same people that you live next door to. These are the same people that your children, go to schools with. Let's figure out how we can curb that thing with law enforcement, because right now, I look at law enforcement like this. We bad credit. And it takes 6 to 7 years to get rid of bad credit. So we got a long way to go in law enforcement. So we got to start somewhere. And that's where hitting the boots on the ground, getting these families registered for vaccinations that really would never get vaccinated until the last minute unless it got mandated. So that kind of started our thing. And so far, I'd imagine we've probably done about 8,000 flyers throughout the city of Alexandria. We primarily hit the underserved, the homeless. What Mike didn't mention is I also run a homeless outreach program in the city of Alexandria, and a lot of that is funded through the things that me and Michael Johnson do together. A lot of suggestions that we get from each other, we kind of break those barriers, whether it's food drives, right now with this pandemic going on, there's families that wouldn't eat if it wasn't for the Alive food drive, which is in the city of Alexandria. And that was one of the things that Michael Johnson linked us into as a police department. A lot of the times, the police department don't have all the answers. So I said, well, if we don't have the answers, maybe we can reach out to the agencies that do. And I figured, the teenagers are going to be who they are. But one of the things I realized, if we catch the youth at an early age, we can kind of curb their appetite and get them headed in that direction that we primarily want them into, production, being productive citizens.
Yeah, I just want to touch base. I don't want y'all to think that redneck crackers ain't over here on that police force, because they are. All right, and Benedict, we done read into some while he was in his uniform, and when he hasn't been in uniform, and me just coming in the neighborhood, directed by the mayor to squash some trouble that's in the neighborhood. But I'm glad that Sidney Davis is on here, because what Benny don't know is I mentioned Sidney to him, and probably we had so many conversations. And his brother Sidney was a guy that basically, I don't know how we hooked up, but I know Sidney's story and he knew mine, and Sidney was a very calming spirit for me. And that's why when I saw him, I was so excited, because every time I go up Georgia Avenue, by his bar, I look for Sidney, and I said, I wonder what he looked like, because I ain't seen him in a while. But you know, Sidney, hey brother, you know I love you always.
Let me say this. As we get into this, everybody's gonna get an opportunity to talk. No doubt about it. We got two hot topics here. If you want to talk about baseball, that's fine. If you want to talk about what Michael, Jay, and what Benny are doing, that's fine. But we got a big problem in Virginia, man. Not only was the 71% of white folks getting the shot, man, they got a middle school over there called Jefferson somewhere over there, and 72% of the middle school is all Asian. 2%. You understand?
Oh, you talking about Jefferson
yeah.
High School, right? Yeah.
Jefferson,
Right.
they got 72% Asians in the school and 2% black, man. That's hustling backwards. Sidney, I wanted to bring you in right now because I want you to kind of elaborate on what's going on around us. We're going to get back to you, so you know you just come in and say what you got to say, and then we'll move on around, come back around to Michael Jackson, and we'll get back down to Bird now. Sidney Davis. Take yourself off mute, Sidney. You're on mute.
Hey, Michael, it's good to see you again. We will talk. I got your number, but let me just reference the fact that they talked about the MLB, and the question is, are we continuously to want to accept disappointment in injustice? There's a disappointment in injustice, and the fact that these youngsters who were primarily involved with the MLB, and the situation that transforms in Virginia is the continuation of disappointment and injustice. And in those two blankets, we have currents, very deep currents of injustice. And we have not been able to identify the currents in injustice. If it's in the DMV, then we don't have a plan to address the currents that run beneath, the currents that we are unable to see, but yet the injustice is put in our face. And so, like the pandemic, there was an injustice to get people vaccinated and to get people screened, particularly black people. And those of us who perpetuate the same cycle of injustice in those currents, we are unable to share and be transparent with information. So that makes us that much more disappointing to each other in accepting the injustice. And what do we do about it? We got to have a plan. I don't want to run off and to something else off of the focus of the program. But we have been faced with a different kind of pandemic of consciousness, the absence of consciousness to deal with the currents of injustice and racism that plague our communities and families. And no one wants to take the position like before in the 60s. We had stand-up brothers and sisters who had backbone, who were prepared to confront the type of currents that perpetuated going to prison, the drug cycles, everything that was destructive, was in the nature of destruction, as Chancellor Williams talked about, the destruction of our civilization, the quiet currents that facilitate the undermining of us having to come together to have good, decent discussions. Michael and I used to have those discussions when I worked at communities and schools, which was in Virginia. That's where we met, at the Charles Hamilton Houston Rec Center, where Michael used to work. He evolved out of that. I was engaged. But it's not about me. It's about how we meet and have a discussion to change the formula, the conduct, the attitude of brutality against blacks all over the place. It doesn't make that we are not in this particular jurisdiction where Michael is, but it matters how we support Michael in his analogy of what's happening to his people. And I know him to do that. So I want to reconnect with you. I thank you for that, Earl.
Got it.
The injustice in Prince George County, you said you had my brother Hopkins on here. I know,
Yeah, Charles on here.
I know, I haven't seen him, but I know and I believe that he, in fact, is a primary instrument to deal with and identify the kind of racist injustice that plagues the, particularly around pandemic. So that's all I'll say. I'll come back.
You're coming back to you. Gary Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to yield my time to. I want to get our guests in. I'm in here every week. Let's go around the horn and make sure.
Okay, Jacques. Come on in, Jacques.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to say to Officer Evans, laissez le bon temps rouler, my brother. You know what that means, of course, in down Louisiana? My dad was born in Natchez, Louisiana, which is the very first incorporated city after the Louisiana Purchase by the racist white folks down there.
I guarantee I know some of them folks, and I see the last name Chevalier, so I'm familiar with the Chevaliers in Shreveport, Louisiana.
That's my folks down there. You already know. But I wanted to say that I am very pleased that the Maryland House of Delegates overrode the veto bill by Governor Hogan regarding the Police Bill of Rights. That's a subject that's always been very, very dear to me because of growing up Black in DC and PG County, and have seen the brutality, have seen the murders, have seen the injustice that have been done by our people. So I just think that that is something that's very, very good for our state, that the cops will no longer be able to do wrong and hide behind the badge, for sometimes months at a time before they even question. I mean, absolutely unreal. So that was one of the things that I just wanted to touch on. And with that said, I will yield, and I want to thank everybody for participating today.
Okay. I want to go here to CJ now. CJ. Come on in here, brother.
So just of the two major issues, I think they can be linked, honestly. The All-Star game, to start with that, I think it shows that, one, the corporations aren't woke. The corporations are not here to actually help the injustice. They're making a money move. They're making a calculation similar to how Nike did with Kaepernick, decide with these dollars are better than these dollars. An openly Jim Crow law, people will be against that. So we're going to try to capitalize off of the Republicans making such a horrible, horrible legislation so public. So that is the calculation for that. It will hurt a lot of the vendors, but it's not a move that I don't think anyone other than a boardroom of corporate suits made that decision. It wasn't for moral reasons, and none of it is anything is for moral reasons. And that brings me back to my point that both of these, the COVID issues in the various states, it all goes back to campaign finance reform. The reason our government and we're fighting against our politicians for basic things is because they don't work for us. There was widespread outrage over that Georgia voter law. There was widespread outrage on both sides of the aisle, but the Democrats can't beat the Republicans in elections for some reason. And the people have very little power. So it took huge corporations are the only people who could ruffle the feathers of those politicians. No one else. They didn't care that they dragged a lawmaker out and publicly in front of the cameras. They didn't care about all the outcry. They care that their donors made a decision. Mitch McConnell was talking about, oh, these businesses need to stay out of politics. Well, not their money, though. We want them to donate and fund us, but they need to keep their opinions to themselves. So that's what it is. Those are their real bosses. And the illusion that they work for us is falling apart. And COVID was part of the reason that broke that illusion. There are people, there's open bribery. Another case of similar to what happened in PG County has happened here in Florida with Ron DeSantis getting huge donations from Publix and certain rich white areas. And then they all got the vaccine first. How did that work? What a coincidence. And the fact that people can't call out that it's open bribery, we can see that they've lined this man's pocket with money, and then he does their bidding. And then we wonder, oh, why can't we solve the problems? Why are the politicians not effective? It's because we've legalized bribery. Until we have campaign finance reform, they don't work for us. They won't respond to us. They won't respond to outrage unless their donors tell them what to do. They are bought and paid for on both sides of the aisle. And we're not going to get progress on these issues if we keep electing people that don't represent us.
Charles, I'm coming first. Then I'm going to go to Michael. Charles.
Thank you, Harold. I want to say, also Benny Evans and Michael Johnson, this is when you see the relationship between the community and law enforcement come together to do things on behalf of the people. And I like what Officer Evans said about understanding the historical attitude of law enforcement, because that once we get to that point, then we'll be able to understand that historically they never was their force, but people like himself open up the door for the dialogue between the community. Because once the community see that you were there to represent their interests and not represent corporate America or not represent Big Brother, then they'll be more likely to like respond to you, and they'll be more likely to, because they want, I don't know nobody in the United States of America that don't want to be safe in their house. Nobody. So they don't say that to the police because the relationship, but when they see the police is there to help them, they want to talk to them, and everybody gonna respect them. But in terms of the COVID, and I like what CJ said, we, you know, corporate America is really the driving force of everything going on with us now. When we have our politicians, but we see in Prince George's County that they're trying to get a backbone and they're doing the right thing. But at the same token, them same people, when it come down to campaigning, they're as sure as they went this way, they'll go the next way. But in terms of the COVID, we recognize and we see that the Black community and the poor and the colored community are being systematically discriminated against in terms of this vaccine, and it's by design. And then they play on our fears, like the brother said earlier. They play on our fears. We got a lot of historical information about how they experiment on us. We know that drugs come into the community and why they came into the community. We know where cocaine came from, and we know why. So we got a lot of information, but when something come up where it's to our benefit, if they can't miseducate us not to use it, they just ignore us. But people like with people like Benny and Officer Evans and Mike, and some of the things that we're doing there in PG County, that's the only way people will be educated to understand that we want you to make a choice to use it, but we won't give you the right to have access to it. If you don't want to take it, that's your business. But we're not going to say not put it in the community and not afford our people the opportunity to get there. So we can have how you gonna have a herd immunity if you got like 70% of a community or county that's not been vaccinated? How you gonna have herd immunity in that area? So that means all that joint is doing is incubating. So we thank you for this program, Harold, and we appreciate your struggle, and we appreciate your being an advocate and your bullhorn being real loud.
Thank you. Gary, let's hit Army Lieutenant. Let's hit that Army Lieutenant video. Then, of course, Michael will come in and we'll talk about this, of course, reform, police reform.
All right.
Y'all check this out. I hope we got audio, but you don't need no audio for this.
Get out the car. You're being stubborn, child violation. You're not cooperating at this point right now. You're under arrest for, you're being detained. Okay, you're being detained for obstruction of justice. I didn't do anything. Whoa, hold on. What's going on? Hold on.
This is an Army lieutenant, man, in uniform. Pepper spray.
Get out of the car. This is really messed up. My dog is in the back. My dog is choking right now. Get out of the car. Take your seatbelt off. What are you, a specialist, Corporal? What are you? I'm a lieutenant. Lieutenant, get out of the car. Take your seatbelt off and get out of the car.
Do you hear this cracker, man?
Please talk to me about what's going on. Get on the ground now. Please talk to me about what's going on. Get on the ground. Please talk to me about what's going on. Yes, sir. You're not. Can you please talk to me about what's going on?
Embarrassing.
Man, let me explain this, man. This is the kind of stuff that's still going on. This was in December. This is after George Floyd, man. This is in Virginia where this happened. This brother had just bought a brand new car and had his tags in the window. And they pulled him over, man, for that. Instead, they treated him just like a nigger, man. That man, y'all might not like that word, but that's just how they treated this, a lieutenant in the army. And they want to talk about kneeling for the flag. This brother serving his country. And he got to go through that, man. So I want to bring in Michael Jackson, who is the district attorney in Selma, Alabama. And Michael, what does this mean by the Maryland House overriding Governor Hogan's on police reform? This is historical, even though it's happening here in Maryland. Hopefully it's going to happen in Alabama. Hopefully it's going to happen in Virginia. Tell us how you feel about that, Michael.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, first I just want to say it's sad that this guy was in this uniform and this is happening. The guy knew he was serving in the military and he still did all that. So that's, man, that disturbed. But as I said earlier, we got a couple of cases that we're prosecuting 2 officers on doing some very extreme things when they pulled over a black male. That's pending, but I want to address several different things. And one is I want to congratulate John Hollins on what they're doing with the RBI program that he has. I grew up in the Atlanta area, so I know how important baseball is to the Atlanta area with, because the Atlanta Braves is about the only team that has won anything there in Atlanta over the years. So I know how important that was when they moved the All-Star game, how that was gonna get people's attention. And then second, I wanted those officers that went out at, the ones on your show right now that going out with the information on the vaccine, that's such a great idea. I'm gonna bring this up to our police chief here. And he need to get some officers and have them pass out a flyer where they can sign up for the vaccine. And that's good public relations with the police department and the community, but it also helps with the fact that because of what happened in Tuskegee with the Tuskegee experience, there are a lot of blacks that just ain't gonna take the vaccine shot. I lose my voice trying to talk folks into taking the vaccine shot, but some folks it just, man, you just talking on deaf ears. So it's a lot of misinformation in the black community in all our cities about this vaccine shot. And, you know, you don't want to have a situation where had the population killed off when a lot of this stuff could be prevented with the vaccine and wearing masks. So I applaud them on that. And like I say, I'm gonna bring this up to our police chief. But now your final point is, let me put it this way, what happened in Maryland ain't gonna happen in Alabama. I can assure you. I mean, I don't know the exact details. I didn't have time. Unfortunately, we done had some shootings of young folks, and we had a shooting in the high school, which is one of these issues I'd love for you to have some panelists on one day, some guests about school violence. But was the governor behind something, trying to reform it, or was he against it? Where was the governor on this?
He didn't want it. He didn't want no police reform whatsoever, man. And I've known that since he come into office. I mean, this is nothing new to me and the guys that live around here in Maryland. This guy is just one step below or above Donald Trump, Governor Hogan. I'm telling you, he's fooling a lot of people. He ain't fooling me, man. Go ahead on. Michael.
If our governor was for police reform, then our legislature wouldn't override the governor on that. We're not only a Republican state, but it's very, very conservative. So it's conservative on that issue, but Well, I'm gonna say this though. The legislature in Alabama is a lot more liberal. I'm gonna have to take back some of the stuff I said. They're a lot more liberal than folks think. They're trying to pass medical marijuana. They're talking about one strike. The one strike law they have in Georgia where somebody gets a second chance. We have a youthful offender bill. If you're under 21, you can get youthful offender status, which means you can't do more than 3 years for no matter what the crime is. So I'm gonna have to strike what I said about in general about the conservative part. As far as crime issues lately, a lot of the libertarians in Alabama are taking over, and they tend to be a lot more liberal on the crime issues. They're Republican, but they're libertarian, so they tend to be a lot more distrustful of law enforcement and other things. So you're starting to get a push in our legislation in Alabama for all kinds of different reforms as far as progressive reforms as far as crime. Now, the pullover thing and all that, they don't really address that kind of issue about things like no-knock warrants or chokeholds. They don't get into that kind of issue thing, but I'm talking about in general with a defendant. There are a lot of, they're trying to eliminate the 3 strikes law here in Alabama. A lot of the legislature who are Republicans, again, they starting to lean libertarian. And so I'm gonna strike back at what I said earlier, but they are very conservative on every other issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what I want to say as we get back down to John, if he's still there, you know, there was an incident just this past week, man, that we got a young black mayor in Greenbelt, Maryland, young brother. Governor Hogan comes into his city with this COVID vaccine thing. They don't even alert him that they're coming in there. He comes in there with the county executive, Angela Alsobrooks. And when I saw the video after they sent it to me, I couldn't believe how they just disrespected this young black brother. You know, gave him no respect. And then when he got up there and called them out on the distribution and the handling of the COVID-19 vaccine in the black community, he tried to be diplomatic with the county executive, but he called the governor out right to his face. He called both of them out. And man, you should have heard the way the governor, he was talking and the governor said, well, I got to leave. He said, well, go ahead, I got this. Well, you know the governor stayed around, don't you? He came back up there and disrespected this young brother, and then the county executive followed behind the governor and did the same thing to this black brother. And you know, and he was right on the one. What he was saying was right on the one. So this is the kind of thing, man. Like everybody say, well, Harold, we got to protect this black brother. Well, they have. And people like Sidney and Charles, what you're doing with the John Lewis Project, man, this young brother is who you need to get behind. I'm not out there like I used to be, but I got a voice. And evidently people are listening, man. So I just wanted to throw that out there before I'm going to bring John. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, John, take 2 minutes and kind of sum up what you've heard.
Well, I heard a lot, got a lot of good brothers, as you say, a few good men on the phone. And one of the things we talk about all the time, Harold, excuse my mask, we talk about all the time, and that is we have to put together some proactive things that you're already doing and we can do in other states, as Michael said, that he's going to do in Alabama. And Bert and I need to put our heads together on what we can do as far as going to the Braves and saying, here's what we'd like for you guys to do based on this. CJ made some strong points, and so did Mike. I mean, we just got to be more proactive, and it's up to us to make it happen. We can't sit back and wait for it to happen, remind people they're wrong, and not put forth efforts to change it. But I'm gonna have to walk up to this counter and drop these bags off.
Okay,
so,
man.
Guys, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
John.
I pray for me on a safe trip, me and my wife, and looking forward to talking to you next Sunday, brother.
All
Take
right,
care.
give my love to Tiki, man. Al, take 2 minutes. Come on back in here. Al, are you there?
Now, gentlemen,
Okay, there he is. Okay,
now, I saw the video of the lieutenant, the young lieutenant that was accosted by the policeman.
that's true.
Okay, pure racist, pure. But you know, the thing that got me, and I didn't serve in the military, but I've got a lot of family members did. My dad did. I didn't hear or have not heard that the base commander came out, okay, on this incident. Because if the base commander comes out on this incident, okay, then that's gonna bring a whole lot of attention to this, all right? So I gotta think the military has gotta come and stand by this brother to say, hey, we ain't standing for this. We support the local community. This base is here and we just ain't gonna stand for it and call them out. So I think the base commander needs to step up to, maybe he has, but I didn't see anything on it, but it just was so disgusting.
Disrespectful, man.
In uniform.
Yeah.
In uniform. So that's really it. But I gotta applaud all the brothers on the line here for the efforts and the energy that you're putting in your various municipalities. I gotta tell you, it's a battle to be fought, and thank goodness we got foot shoulders on the ground to do it. And I gotta thank you for that. Harold, all your support, and just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you, Benny.
Can I add something to that about the police reform thing?
Okay, real quick.
Being a part of it, it's a thing that we have to make sure that we are a part of that reform. We are a part of that change, because a change without us a part of is just a change to adapt to the things that they've always been doing. So no matter what agency you're with, whatever city you're in, when they start talking justice reform, you need to be in the room having those discussions and seeing what they're talking about too.
Amen.
I agree, Benny. I agree. Let's go back over here to Bert. Bert.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Guys, you guys are taking me way back. I'm from Oakland, as you know, but I was heavily involved with the Black Panther Party, with Huey and a lot of the guys. I supplied the newspaper film to print the paper. I had no idea that I was on the FBI wanted list. But my whole thing was helping them get their school started with the meal program. My oldest son was in the first graduating class, and Huey put him in there. So the idea about the fight's not going to stop, because they're not going to stop who they are. We just have to make sure that it don't step on who we are. And that continues to happen. I'm in Atlanta. I'm really kind of fearful about what's going on. I've had 2 incidents thus far, and people are asking me what I think about the All-Star game being canceled or moved. And it's not the idea that they want me to tell my opinion. They want me to agree with them. I got a driver that's going to be here in 5 minutes taking me to the stadium to sit behind the dugout for the Braves, but mainly because of Alvy Alves, a young man that we befriended each other in his hometown in Curacao. That's why I'm going to the game. I'm not a Braves fan. I'm a baseball fan. I'm a fan of my players that I've helped get in the big leagues and helped get in the minor leagues and helped get into college. And that's why the Lord put me on this earth. I know that for a fact. So police reform, very important. My first nephew is an OPD sergeant. I hear the stories all the time. And he's talking to his fellow officers and said, hey man, you didn't have to go that way. Why did you go that way? So guess what he did? He just retired and he's moving to Texas. We lose another good one because of the fact that these brothers on the front line just say, man, I can't handle them no more. Because see, they know where I live. You follow me? Even though they're my co-workers, but are they really? So that's all I have to say. I mean, Harold, keep me in the program, man. I appreciate it. My driver is outside the door.
Okay, man.
And I'm going to be sitting behind the dugout. So watch the Braves game. I'm wearing the Alvy Alves shirt and a USA baseball hat. Okay. Hello. Thanks.
All right, Sis.
Harold, great show, man. Keep putting it, man. The Lord's going to keep blessing you and the missus. No doubt.
Okay. Thank you. Sidney, you got 2 minutes.
Well, it's consistent, man, to have conversation, and after coming out of the power of the conversation to transform what we know we need to do, we're still at a point where we don't have a collective agenda. We agree on all of the atrocities that are taking place in our communities in different states. But the deal is not conforming to the toxic poison that helps us to think to a disadvantage in our communities. We have to metastasize this thing to do a greater good. And I think we have the power to do it. We have not connected. You know, my grandmother taught me how to sew. She taught me how to thread a needle. She taught me how to make the stitch so that the clothes wouldn't look a certain way even after I sewed them. But the deal is we have gone through something to know something, therefore we know how to thread the needle, but how to make the connecting stitch with reference to us as a culture, as human beings, to stand up not only for the human rights or the civil rights, but just downright, maximizing our thinking to do different in our communities for the health of our children and our families, and brothers and sisters coming back in these communities from having to be in prison. They have to come to a centralized, like the horses used to do, the horse trough. They go there to drink. These people got to come back to a trough of knowledge and understanding about what we do in our communities, and what that commitment is non-negotiable, because we've seen how families have been virtually decimated and destroyed because.
Okay. Michael Johnson, 2 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All this is great. I tell Benny this every day, is that it's the relationship that you have with people, period, that covers you when you're out there on the street or anywhere else. Because I think CJ mentioned it, and I thought about this, about the vaccine. And I tell Benny this all the time. I say, Benny, somebody working in the health department, it's just like throwing a party. Somebody working in the health department told one of their co-workers that the vaccine was rolling out the next day. They told their friends first. So their friends got the vaccine.
Yeah.
And then we had to follow behind. I worked for the city. It took me, I had to drive to Dulles Airport to get my shot. Right? When they was giving it right here in Alexandria. But that was the backup. And then when I found out that we could be a part of that working solution, which is to get my people and people of color vaccinated, then we could try to balance that number out. But we still got a long way to go. But it's all about community anyway. And like I say, Harold, you from DC, Sydney, and some of the guys always talk about guys from Virginia or Washington. All I know is that everywhere I went to meet guys like you two, they been nothing but love. And I learned a lot. And the brother Michael Jackson, down in Georgia. My people is from Barnesville, Georgia. My mother is.
Thank you, baby. Thank you. Jacques, you got 2 minutes, baby.
All right, I'll be quick again. Again, very lively discussion, and we definitely, I think everywhere we go, whenever, I always say, whenever you see politicians out, whenever you get to a meeting, you should say what's on your mind. You shouldn't be in it to kiss their tails, just to try to get along, because I'm one of them niggas too that believe that I was born a nigger first. My birth certificate actually says Negro on it. So, and then I became a black man. I became a married man. I became a person who believed in economics for our people, because that's what it's all about too. The economics of it all, the spirituality, I understand that. And all the other freedoms that go with that. But we have to learn to, when we see these people and these preachers that have run these mega churches out here, which to me, some of them ain't nothing but mega pimp houses. And that's my opinion, Anytime you got a white church, I'm gonna say this and be quiet, that's run by white people out here on Central Avenue, the Evangelist Temple, 99.5% of the people that attended are black, and you got all white people sitting up on the altar, and these stupid Negroes, and I know a bunch of them, some of them are in high positions in this county, going out there, bow down to this white man, letting them take their money. They give up everything in the world just to try to be appeasing to white people and white developers. So I say that when you see these politicians out there, say what's on your mind. Don't, every time I see Angela Brooks, Brooks, hey, Angela, when you gonna lower my real estate taxes? I don't say, hey, you look pretty. She's a pretty gal. I give her that. And she dances well. But I think that she's not doing enough economically for our people. With that said, I'm gonna shut up.
You're not, Mike, you're not that, she's not dancing to the right tune. Because you have asked me, have I invited her on the show? I have invited her on the show. Every time I do a show, I send her an invitation. And so evidently there's something that's not going on the show she don't want to be a part of. CJ, come on, CJ.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on a point that was made earlier about the changing politics, not just down in the South with people becoming not less conservative, but with that libertarian alliance, basically. Like there's an opportunity and a political kind of realignment happening now that more and more people see that the mainstream Democrats and the Republicans are basically the same party. They're a corporate owned party that agrees more than they disagree. So there's a lot of white poor people and other people who, you know, as it was stated before, who are also distrustful of law enforcement and distrustful of the government, that there could be some unlikely alliances and partnerships that could form in the post-Trump era, where there are a lot of people that were mad at the government for some legitimate reasons, some ridiculous reasons, but not every Trump voter was a racist and an idiot. They are people that were lied to by both sides, by Democrats and Republicans. So we have to try to strategically get the allies that are worth getting, if that makes sense. You know, like really reach out to the libertarians and the disaffected former Republican voters and try to, because a lot of the issues are economic and they are shared issues with the Black community and just low income communities and the Latino community, the undocumented. There are a lot of issues that people realize that it is not Black versus white or Democrat versus Republican. It's a class warfare going on. It's the rich versus everyone else. So I think we need to start framing our political alliances in that way.
Okay, Charles. Close it. Go ahead, Charles. You got it.
Organize, organize, organize.
All right, my man. Gary.
I learn something every time we do this show. The synergy is there. This show just proves that one person can make a difference. And it happens every day, and it'll happen tomorrow, because we're going to step out here, we're going to share this show, and somebody's going to look at it, somebody's going to share it, and this is how it starts.
Right. I just want to say, man, I want to thank all you guys. This has been fantastic, very enlightening and educational. And like I tell everybody, share this video, send it out to your network, because I'm getting responses from all over the country about this show. We may not get 1 million hits, but a lot of people are looking at us. You know, you can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. Gary put up on Facebook, the original Inside Sport, Black Men in America. So we got a voice, and we're making a difference. So I just keep on, man, just keeping the faith. And Michael Jackson, man, thank you for, you know, always being on the show, man. You know, you've been a voice that has been very uplifting. And Sydney and Charles, all you, Michael and Benny, man, Jacques, of course, CJ, man, thanks for making Speak the Truth really exactly what it is, speaking the truth. And I just want you to remember that every Black face you see is not your brother or sister. And remember, if you go soar with eagles, you cannot hang out with chickens, man. You cannot hang out with chickens. So until next time, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone. Hi, I'm Harold Bell. My wife Hattie and I found the nonprofit organization in 1968, shortly after the riots that almost destroyed my hometown, Washington, D.C. The program caters to the needs of at-risk children as it relates to social services such as education, law enforcement, drug abuse, gang-related violence, and other antisocial behavior.